evening, YouTube. This is Kaylin Stern coming at you with my regular Sunday night dinner. And I'm trying to bring my stream up on my chat, but it kind of froze up on the ad. And I had a little issue trying to get my phone oriented in the right way, so yeah, that should do it. This is menu 18 from the Case B from 2024 that was sent in by Waffels. And he is here along with spicy tuna rolls. And Emphos is here. Thanks for dropping in. I see something in here that I'm going to like seeing. There's a little teaser right there. I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Because the way these bags are designed, if you want to use it as a trash bag, you almost have to cut it in order to help it to retain its shape. Recovery bar, salted caramel marshmallow crisp, and it's in a package that is the same size as the tortilla pack. So this is the length of the bar, and that is the width of the bar, and it's in a tortilla size pack. Next thing I'm pulling out is the sleeve that has ingredients and nutritional information for the beef ravioli. And it's other stuff that they always put on the back of these. Next out of the bag, the printing is not very good on this, but it is the Italian breadsticks. Looks like the packaging has been changing up. There is a date code on the breadsticks. This particular bag was packed on a 269th day of 2024. Next I'm going to pull out the drink mix, which was put in upside down. This is a fruit punch, same as last week's ration. And here's the accessory packet with no coffee, but it has matches this time. Set that off to the side. I already got my backup plan for that. And then here is a powdered hot sauce, but the purple pack. So this is slightly different than the picante one. That one has red printing. This one has purple printing. So that was outside of the accessory pack. Got the usual spoon, which I save. There's an FRH again, which I save. This is packed in about the middle of the year for that particular FRH. That's when that one was produced. Here is the beef ravioli. 2 more things in the ration bag. I just pulled them out together. Regular cheese spread. And M&M's. The original milk chocolate. And instead of a date code, this has a best buy date of July of 2025. I'm going to go ahead and mix this in my drinking jar. Last week's was from 2022. This is 2024. I like to mix all these powders first because they take so long to dissolve. The one from last week didn't have any of that funky stuff floating on the top. Tonight I'm going to have a Nescafe from that box that I got from Hillel Groceries last year. I'm just going to cut the top off of this. I'm just going to do 1 packet tonight. That's what it looks like. I'm going to warm the breadsticks through passive heat. I'm going to take the ravioli into the kitchen. This feels pretty dense, but this will loosen up a bit. I'm not going to bother warming up the cheese spread. But I'll go ahead and take these both into the kitchen, and then I'll come back with the water for my coffee. Okay, I am back. Actually, I'll just go ahead and put the cheese spread on top of that. I'm going to go ahead and open up the recovery bar. It is double packaged. This is done by Sterling Foods. This is the only flavor of this recovery bar that I have had. I am hoping that maybe in future versions of these MREs that more flavors will come out. I'm going to open up the M&Ms. Still had the scissors open, so I figured why not use them. There's your standard M&Ms. While I'm waiting for those to heat up, I'm going to give my fruit punch another mix. It seems to be clear on the top, which is nice. Inside the accessory packet, you get the typical rear roll, peppermint gum. I shall get matches this time. Look, they're brown, but white tips. Again, I have no idea what the tip color means. Usual wet wipe. And this ridiculously small salt packet. And I'm going to go ahead and put this powdered hot sauce packet in here because I do not intend on using that tonight. I'd rather save that for something else. All the other items will get saved for a later time. I have a bag that all of my plastic spoons go in. I have a bag that all of my FRH bags goes in. And all these other items, I have bags, Ziploc bags for them. I sort them out. And they are added to my emergency stash. For later use. These things like the rear rolls can be barter items. They can be put into a pack like for a day trip or a couple of days for an overnight trip or whatever. Or in your EDC bag, you can stick one of these in there. Now I'm going to go get the ravioli and the breadsticks. And I'll show you what else I have in mind for this. I am back. I got the ravioli and the breadsticks. I put the breadsticks down in there first, and then ravioli. Yeah, Waffels, I would definitely agree with that. Cold War prepper in the house. Thanks for dropping in. I'm going to go ahead and dry off the breadsticks first. Just got a little wet from me putting the ravioli pouch on there. Now I'll go ahead and dry this off. Then I find the tear notch. I shake it, so I want the food to go down below it. I had another one of these. Actually, I think I might have used my, I think I had a 22 of this menu, like packed in 2022. And I did a comparison between the American beef ravioli and the Canadian. That's probably about as much of that as I'm going to get out of there. Spread these out a little bit. Now I'm opening up the breadsticks. Oxygen absorber remain behind. I'm going to take my cheese spread. That's set on top of my coffee. Now I'm going to cut a corner off. Gotta have the cheese on the ravioli, because why not? As if that was not enough cheese. Parm from a kitchen. Because I have it, I'm going to use it. Oops, a little bit dropped off. That is now more to my liking. Adding the cheese now just does something, improve this. I'm going to see what's going on in chat. One thing I could do with these cheese covered breadsticks. Oh, that one just broke. Putting the cheese on the waffles, yeah, I don't know why I said waffles, on the breadsticks, it kind of tones down the saltiness of the cheese spread. Yeah, Waffles sent me this MRE in that 2024 pack case B, so. Yeah, I have my slider cracked open. I have birches and sycamores in front of my building. And so birds like to hang out there, plus they hang out on our decks. And some manage to even build a nest on the underside of the deck instead of in the tree. I don't know if they think it's safer to do that. Or why they do it, but they do. But last summer I started putting out a bowl of water and birds are using it. Squirrels are probably using it. I found a different bowl that is better for that. It's a stoneware bowl that I don't mind leaving outside. It's not the type that I would actually put food in for myself or even for my cat. So I use it as a water bowl for the non-human residents. But Waffles has been putting out some really cool stuff. and I'm enjoying watching his videos. He does things a little different, but different is good. Yeah, I had the same drink last week, and I was hoping that it wouldn't have that funky crap in the floating on the top, and it doesn't. But it's still not one of my favorite drinks, but I'll drink it. This recovery bar, it looks kind of like a Rice Krispie bar. Because of the extra stuff in it, it's a little bit denser than a Rice Krispie bar, but it's still easy to chew. It can be a bit on the sticky side, but on a cool day that wouldn't be so bad, but on a hot day, yeah, it could be a hot mess. I still have not been able to get a hold of a foreign ration with a beef goulash, preferably Polish, but if I can get one from another country completely intact, then I can do what I tried to do last year, but because of what was actually in that Polish ration, that was a fail. And what was labeled goulash was actually a little puck of beef lunch meat, kind of like a beef version of Spam. And the main entree was bigos, or a hunter stew. Although I had not planned on buying any rations this month, there was a guy in a Facebook ration group that had some rations that he thought I would be interested in. So he gave me a good deal on the whole lot. So they should be coming sometime next week. I also want a giveaway off of Paul's gear review, but I'm still waiting on that package to come. I had really hoped someone else would win that one, but I guess my comment got picked by whatever comment picker he used. So I accepted it. and I emailed him my address for shipping. He does MREs, but he does other gear reviews, and he's dabbling into survival kits and putting kits together. So when I do get his package, I'll do a mail call video just like the rations that I got on Facebook, and sent the tracking number. So like I said, I should get that one next week. And this Nescafe 3-in-1, it's not like the sweet and creamy that you get in Canadian IMPs. It's a little bit lighter on. It's not as sweet. It's a little less on the creamy, so you get more of the coffee flavor. It's closer to the G7 that I really like. And putting that parmesan really takes up the sauce from this ravioli. But adding both cheeses definitely makes it a little bit more savory to my liking. Some of these pasta sauces that are in these mains can be a little bit too sweet. Oh, I'm a teabag squeezer. I openly admit it. Yep. Waffels is on the other side of the pond. A few time zones ahead of UK. So it is already Monday morning there. I think he is one time zone different from Shadow. He is in Sweden. Sometimes he pops in, sometimes not. Because my particular time slot that I choose isn't always great for some of my foreign viewers, but the replay, that's, if they want, they can catch that. This recovery bar, the saltiness, the sweetness, the caramel, it's pretty balanced. But I would love to see more flavors of these come out. I'd love to get some more Norwegian rations to try to get other flavors of their protein bars. There's a blueberry. The cranberry shows up the most. Sometimes there's chocolate. It's that one might be kind of like the Orifel cereal bar, the chocolate one, or a chocolate chip granola bar. But then there's a blueberry one, and I think that's all of the flavors that I know of that. But getting those in, yeah, that's easier said than done. I'm not sure if a vegetarian or breakfast one would make it across without getting raided. My crusher in the house. Thanks for dropping in. Got this menu 18 on the tray. I brought in a coffee for my stash. I added some parm for my kitchen on the raviolis and some of this cheese spread. Because why not? This fruit punch does not have that funky stuff at the top, and I'm glad of that. It's still not my favorite U.S. ration drink, but as long as they're in good shape, I'll still drink them. Yeah, Waffels is up pretty early. But depending on their work schedule, sometimes you have to get up there early. When my second oldest sister first started working for the TSA as a security screener at our local airport, she had to be at her screening station by 3 a.m. or 3:30. But then that meant she got off work early in the afternoon in time for her son to come home from school. But then as he got older, she was able to shift her time, and then she moved up to supervisor and then into personnel management or human resources. Of course, that all ended in September of, in the middle of, last year there was this mass layoff where, deferred resignation as they called it, where you quit work, you turn in your badge, you lose your security clearances. I think she even turned in her uniforms, and you just got paid for a certain number of months and got to keep the health insurance. That build up your IPERS, which is a retirement fund for government employees all the way from local level to federal. Although the military has its own. I think intelligence services might have their own retirement system. I have no idea. But my former clients who were military vets, they got some kind of a pension as well as their health care. And some of the programs that they were in paid for me and others like me to go into the home to provide their care. DeCarlos Perry's in the house. Thanks for dropping in. But a local here that I have camped with, another Iowa YouTuber, she hasn't put up anything for quite some time on her channel, Redbird 491, but she was in the Army. She was in logistics, so she spent some time in Europe. But she handled logistics both in Europe and here in the U.S. before she got out of the Army and then was in the National Guard. And my one cousin who was in the Air Force in the 90s, she was a fighter jet mechanic in Florida. Another cousin, one of the sons of one of her siblings, is now in the Air Force, but doing something different. I have no idea where he's at, but he is somewhere doing a job. I'm guessing that he's probably here in the States. He may not be overseas, but again, I don't know. And I had another relative who was in the Army a long time ago. And my step-grandfather on my mom's side, my maternal grandmother's second husband, was in the Army. And then he got out of that after World War II. And then in the Vietnam War, he went into the Air Force. So he saw action in both places. Waffles, would that be you? Referring to your comment about you know a guy who's doing reviews now. Would that be you? when I was thinking about what I was going to do tonight, thought I'm just going to do a single meal instead of my RCIR because next Monday or next Sunday is Mother's Day, and I have no idea what is being planned. I'm usually kept out of the loop of that. And I'm just told when I'm going to get picked up and who is supposed to come pick me up. That's usually about all I know. But I have a gift from my mom. And my great niece, her birthday is also very soon if she hasn't had it already. But I have her gift, but I have to I'll probably wait till next Sunday and I'll take that to my oldest sister because I have some other things for her. I just put my great niece's gift inside of a container that I'm returning to my oldest sister because in March we had, or no, yeah, yeah, my relatives celebrate Easter. I don't because Muslims don't celebrate that, but to me it's just hanging out with the family. And I brought home food, and I have those containers all cleaned out and ready to go back to her. So I just stuck my great niece's gift inside of one of those containers because it fits. Yep, this is beef ravioli, menu 18, 2024 pack. I'm curious if 2025s are in circulation or if we are just up to 2024s being available. I'd like to get a 2024 case A. And I would love to get the freshest case of halal MREs, as I can get my paws on. And I'd like to get a case of recent MCWs. Any of those ones that have pork in them, I will trade off. Yeah, that XMRE pizza ration that I have that has a pepperoni pizza on it. The bag just says pizza. So I thought I better open it to see what is inside this thing, which pizza it is, whether it's the pepperoni or the cheese. So I decided that is going to be a giveaway item. So that one is complete. I have it taped closed, but I might throw a couple other things in there just for the heck of it. So I'm not sure what will be going on Sunday time wise for how long I will be out. But if I find out ahead of time and if it affects my live stream time, then I will go ahead and toss a post up. It could be a little later, which would be a bother for some people. Or it could be same time. Or if it's an evening thing, I may not be live at all again. I don't know. Yep, there is still one ration category that I would love to get my paws on. A complete MCW, MCI, the Meal Combat Individual. The box with the cans and the accessory packet that is in a brown bag instead of one like this. And it has a short white spoon instead of this. I have a brown short spoon. That was very rare. Probably this material, but in the brown, in the short MCI spoon style. I don't know if anyone else on YouTube has ever shown one of those. I offered to send it to Sean, the Ration Museum channel, but apparently he has that. Apparently he has one, so I kept it. Smokey might have one. I don't know, but I'm going to keep that one because to me that's a rare find. But if I can get a hold of a complete MCI, I would love a 1966 one. But finding that specific year is probably extremely difficult. It would probably be extremely expensive. But just any complete MCI that's in relatively decent shape, even if I can't eat the food, it would still be awesome to look at it. I had a B2 unit. I don't remember what year that was. I haven't figured out those codes on those because I've only seen those two in person. And then I had a bread can that I found out what those bread cans are issued as a separate item to the soldier in the field, much like in Canada the FRH is given out separate and not in the ration bag. But I got one of those bread cans. I was not able to eat the bread, but it was still cool to look at. But that B2, the crackers in there were absolutely awesome. The cocoa mix is one of the best ration cocoa mixes I've had. I wish I could remember what year that one was. But if I am able to get a hold of a complete MCI, that will definitely be the subject of the stream. But I will have other food, since I would most likely not be able to eat what is in probably any of those cans. But to look at it would still be absolutely awesome. I've had a few brown bags that I was not able to eat all the food. Tan bags, had a couple that were messed up, the early tan bags. And I was not able to eat everything out of that ration cold weather that I got a hold of. But what I was able to eat was pure awesomeness. I will get to that RCIR soon. And the corned beef hash brown bag that I got from Art and Nina for an MRE, along with my favorite DAF ration menu. I think both the red and black line DAF rations had the same ones. I've never had all menus of each color bag. But the one that the salmon paella, that was my favorite of the few DAF rations that I did get a hold of. These are the white bags with either the black or the red. I've never had the actual military ones. These are like first responder or police rations. I forget which color is which. But the salmon paella is my favorite of those. And of course I got the same halal MRE that I had reviewed just a few weeks prior to that. So I will not open that one up on camera. That one will just be for my personal enjoyment at a later date. Or I could take it apart and use the components in ration mashups. That's another thing that I could do with that one. Yeah, I have seen people open up the accessory packs and some of those older ones that have the cigarettes in them. And there's a YouTuber who was buying up as many of those MCI accessory packets as he could because he was collecting the cigarette packets. I don't know what he did with the other stuff, but he was after the cigarette packs. Yeah, I don't smoke, but if I do end up with a cigarette pack, I'm just going to seal it. And I could eventually use that as a barter item. That would probably be what I would do with it because to me that would be the safest. But I won't know until I get one of those MCIs that might have one in there in the accessory pack. Speaking of older rations, I've talked about this before. In my old high school, there were rumors going around that there was a secret hiding place in one of the buildings, and it was full of K rations from World War II. You know, the years that those rations were in use, that there's a stash of them. We never found out if that was true or not, but that was an ongoing rumor for as long as I attended there. But then the enrollment kept dropping. So when I graduated from that school in 1984, my graduating class was only 5. So about 15 years ago, that school finally closed down. And then about 10 years ago, or maybe less than that, that property was sold to some developer, and I have no idea what is going on with the buildings. The first building, which would be a more historical value, I don't know if that got saved or at least preserved, at least on the outside. I would have to try to contact one of my old friends who still lives in that town, if they know what happened to those buildings. I am curious, but yeah, there is no interest in the part of the principal or the superintendent in finding out if there was actually a ration stash somewhere in one of those buildings. It could have been during the, civil defense days. I don't know what time period those would have been put in there, if they were actually put in there, but I have been curious about that ever since. And I would really like to know. Taking a drink of the coffee right after taking a bite of this recovery bar is pretty good. I kind of like that flavor combination. Thanks for dropping in, Carlos. Good to see you in the chat, even if it's just for a little while. I hope things get better for you. I hope to see you next time. may not be able to hear it, but there are sirens going up a block away. Actually, they might be coming on. Nope, they've gone. They've gone in the opposite direction, or they stopped. They're, Thursday, I was walking through the park after getting out of the bus, and I saw two ambulances and a fire truck pull up. One was in front of my building, one of the ambulances, and then the fire truck had pulled into a spot in front of a building that is west of mine, but not in the same complex. It's not under the same management. Been in the ambulance that was almost cutting off the exit driveway of my building moved forward. And maybe it took off, maybe only one of the two ambulances was needed for whatever happened in that other building. Because I never saw any of the crew get out of it. But by the time they got done doing whatever they were doing, I was already up in my apartment. Putting away some groceries that I had picked up. There's Tim Riley in the house. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah, my old high school had tunnels that went in between some of the buildings. And because of where it was located, there was an anhydrous ammonia plant nearby. So we did periodic ammonia drills where we would go into the tunnels just like we did for tornado warnings or tornado drills. We would go down into those tunnels, and then, in bad weather, we could go in between the buildings through those tunnels. So because of that, that could have been a way where if there were rations stored somewhere on the property, they could have been taken down into one of those tunnels and then moved into some secret rooms that were then blocked off or walled off to make it look like there was nothing there, just another section of the wall. The school that I attended in Nebraska was a small one as well, but we only had the one building. We did not have several buildings that we would go in between. And I had only gone there for 4 years. It was in between the first time that I had lived in eastern Iowa, and I actually attended preschool in the school that I would eventually return to after 4 years in Nebraska. But in that Nebraska school, I never heard of any rumors of ration stashes or anything like that. Just the school that I attended here in Iowa. Yeah, my school that I graduated from, when you got to be, when the class sizes were bigger, you had to be a junior in order to be allowed to work the snack bar that was open during evening school activities such as like in-school tournaments or competitions where students from another school would come, or anything like that, because we had a bunch of different activities for the students, like on weekends. But the snack bar sales was part of the fundraiser for the senior class. So when those juniors got to be seniors, then the money that they had raised from the snack bar sales, along with other fundraisers, went towards their class trip. But as the class sizes got smaller, then sophomores could work the snack bars as long as there was a junior or a senior with them. So we had to have two working the snack bar, sometimes three if there was a lot of people at that event. But we also had fundraisers like the Tupperware party, where I got the Tupperware tray that I occasionally use. And I had bought items for my mom because she was huge into Tupperware collecting, and she used everything that she collected. But we had additional fundraisers that we would do. And then my senior year, we went to Hannibal, Missouri. So a couple of days there. Actually, we'll get there in the afternoon, and then we spend a couple of full days there, and then from there we went down to St. Louis for the remainder of the trip, where we toured the Anheuser-Busch brewery. We got to see, there are a couple of the Clydesdales in the round barn. We did not get to see all of them, but we saw a couple of them in there. And we took in a Cardinals game where they played the Dodgers in the old round Busch Stadium. And we gone up into the arch. There's one student who went with us who uses a wheelchair. The arch does not accommodate wheelchair users, so he could not go up it. But when we went into near Hannibal, Missouri, there was a cave, and they had done extensive work in that cave to make it wheelchair accessible. So he was able to go into the cave. And of course, we also went to Six Flags in St. Louis. But that was all paid for by different fundraisers that we had. That was probably stopped probably several years after I left because of the student enrollment was declining so fast that they had to cut a whole lot of stuff out. Yeah, I'm sure there were some changes in the arch between 68 and 84 when I was there. But it was still pretty cool going up in there. And that same Anheuser-Busch brewery that we toured in 84 was one of them that canned up a whole bunch of water and sent it up in 93 when Iowa got flooded out by what was called the 500-year flood. Yeah, I got the cans that were from the St. Louis brewery. Then the other breweries around the country had also done the same thing. I was poking around eBay late last year and I saw 6 cans of the water that was done by another brewery. I don't remember which one that was, but it was not the St. Louis one. But I didn't bid on it or try to buy it, I just saw it. I have no idea how many truckloads of that canned water Anheuser-Busch brought into Iowa. But considering the extent of the flooding, we definitely needed that. And I wish I had gotten into prepping at that time, but I had no idea what that concept even was back then. I was taking some summer classes at DMAC, Domain Area Community College at the time. Because I wanted to try some different skills that might help me get a job that I could do and then just have my Spanish available as an added benefit. So I did use Spanish in probably all but one of the jobs that I've had. I did not use it at the Greek restaurant. I used it a little when I worked at Burlington Coat Factory for a week shy of a year. Then they were told to cut their operating expenses, and I was the one who got cut. But I used it a bit at Walgreens. I used it when I worked at a door company called MCO, which later got bought out. I believe they got eventually bought out by Anderson. I don't even know if the MCO line is even still active. I have not looked into that. But I used it in my home health care job. And sometimes I may happen to be in a store and I hear a person speaking Spanish and the cashier or other employee is struggling to understand, and I just kind of pop in and on the spot translate. Thanks for dropping in, Waffles. Hope to see you another time. Yeah, going back to that cave, one of the kids in my group had the first generation of talking clocks that are commonly used by blind people or people who may be dyslexic to the point that they cannot make out numbers, but he had it in his coat pocket, and our guide said she was going to turn off the lights so we could get a sense of absolute darkness because we were so far down in that no light from the entrance was going to be able to reach where we were at. So a couple of seconds after she turns off the lights, that kid's clock that had an alarm set for a specific time because it was a medication alarm for him. And it went off, said the time. And then she turned the lights back on, and all of us just busted out laughing. There are other people in that tour group. It wasn't just our little group. There was probably about maybe 30 to 40 people total in that group that this guide was leading through the cave. And then she says, well, now that we know what time it is, and then everybody just busted out laughing. How probably was the highlight of that guide's year having us in one of her groups that she led through that cave when that hidden alarm clock went off in that kid's pocket. Now time to go after these M&Ms. Gotta know these are gonna be good. Of course, technology has improved a lot since then. I could go into the Department for the Blind building, go into the store that they actually have in there, where they sell assistive devices for blind people, along with braille paper and other things like that. I could get a talking watch if I wanted to. That's how the technology for that has shrunk over the years. Yeah, the lights in that cave, some of them were positioned where they were pointing up at features to highlight them specifically. I can't remember when the renovation was done to make that cave wheelchair accessible, but it just made that little cave tour even more exciting. Of course, then at Six Flags in St. Louis, I was not in that particular boat on the Thunder River, but another group was, and theirs got hung up on one of the side rock shapes, and the moving water was not able to push it down towards the bottom, to follow the rest of them. So they ended up stuck underneath one of the waterfalls for almost an hour before employees were able to get it knocked down where it was free floating in the water again. So by the time they got back to the bus, they looked like a bunch of wet dogs. But that group still had a good time. In addition to my class, we had added a few other kids to the trip because two of my classmates were not able to go for different reasons. So other kids were substituted, plus a couple extras. And then we had an additional staff member to help the boy in the wheelchair. And we had hired a charter bus that had a wheelchair lift so that he could get in and out of the bus. It's one of those customized buses that had a little TV in it So on the way down, we could play DVDs, or maybe pick up local TV stations once we got into a range of one. That was in addition to the radio. And speaking of Mark Twain, the restaurant that we ate lunch in, Hannibal, before we went on a short paddle wheeler ride on the Mississippi, there was a table there that said Renowned Liars Table. There's a sign on it. I never did figure out why that particular table had that on there. I don't know if some infamous criminals had sat there back in the day and they're known to be liars. Or if maybe politicians sat there. Or why it got its name. I never did figure that out, but I sat at that table. We all thought that was funny that that particular restaurant had a name for that particular table. I wish I could remember that restaurant, but it was still a fun place. We didn't make it to the zoo. We just did not have the extra day for that. Our budget just was not quite enough to afford an extra day. Yeah, it was during the spring break time, and when you're traveling by bus instead of a plane, you don't have as much time in the places you're wanting to visit as you would if you flew there. But we were able to get this customized bus that could accept the wheelchair. And that driver was very, very helpful. She was very good at her job. So we were very appreciative of what she did for us. We had a little extra coin and we gave her something. I would like to see the St. Louis Zoo. I have been to the Henry Dooley Zoo, but not in a long time. Probably it was before my maternal grandmother moved in with my parents after she sold her house in Omaha. Now, maybe shortly after. It might have been shortly after she moved in with my parents after selling her house it was just getting too physically demanding for her to maintain that house on her own. After losing her second husband, Alzheimer's, he had spent his final years in a nursing home for military vets. One of the few nursing homes that actually gave great care. Yeah, Alzheimer's really done him in. But after she sold the house, we got a little chunk of the money that she got for it. And we all used it to pay bills. Yep. I did get to meet Big Daddy in person. I've talked about this a few times before, where he used to come into the Walgreens that I worked at shortly before close. He would just want to pick up a couple of things on the way home. But after working all day, he still had that big smile that he was known for. And any other customers who knew who he was, they always enjoyed seeing him in there. I never actually got to go into the restaurant, but someone had gotten food from there, I think once or twice. But I knew he was always giving away turkeys at Thanksgiving, and I think he did some Christmas stuff as well. He used to do that. He was big into that. Yep, I even got to meet Governor Ray once, or I think once I did. Of course, I also got to meet Branstad during his first time as governor when he came out to the YMCA camp, and we did a special stage show for him. We always did, and I think they still do, a weekly stage show for the campers. And we would choose a different theme every year. During the counselor's staff training week before the first group of kids would come. Or sometimes we would find out the theme even farther in advance, and that would give us more time to work on costumes and props and things like that, which we all did. But we did a special one for Governor Branstad during his first term. But it was fun doing that. As before I was really getting to understand politics. But then after high school, I went down to Arkansas for 4 years, and Jimmy Carter had come to the University of Central Arkansas to give a speech, and I had gone in there. I had a tape recorder. I was going to try to record it, but it ran out of battery power before my second cassette had finished getting filled. Plus, I didn't have it in as good a spot as I would have liked to. You know how gyms can be so acoustically loud and reverberating that when I tried to play it back, the quality was not all that great, and I ended up just recording over those cassettes. But he spoke to a packed gym that day. So that was my first time actually attending a politician's speech, even though he had already been out of office, but he was still doing public speeches along with his Habitat for Humanity and other stuff. But it was only after I came back to Iowa and after I got my first apartment, I registered to vote, where I was living way out on the east side, a mile away from the nearest city bus stop at the time. I really couldn't go anywhere without one of my siblings giving me a ride. Or I got a ride from someone else, and when I had taken a trip with a group during that time, someone invited an unmarried couple into my bedroom, and I'll just say that once I discovered the evidence, I was not happy. So as soon as I could, I moved out of there into an apartment where from now on, no one does any of that. No one is going to get into my bedroom and do that again. I never got an apology. I just washed the bed sheets because I didn't want to pick up anything nasty. After coming home from that trip. Yeah, I actually still have a Walkman as well. A boombox I had where I could take the speakers off and separate them from the center part, because there were wires that go from the speakers to the back of the center portion where the radio and the dual cassette players were. Yeah, that one finally bit the big one. But I still have a Walkman. I still have a Kodak camera that uses the older style film cartridges, not the 35 millimeter. It was, I can't think of the name of the type of film cartridge that went in there, but I still have that camera. In fact, my dad had given my siblings and I each one of those, and then it came with little letter stickers and spots to put them so we could put our initials on there so we could tell them apart because they're all identical. But yeah, I still have that camera in its leather case. The battery compartment is probably corroded because I think after I had last used it when I could still buy film for it, I probably left the batteries in there. So it's probably not usable, but I still have it. The Walkman may not have batteries in it, but I still have it. At one time, I even had an older style cabinet record player, but the speakers were going out on it. So when I moved out of that place, I just got rid of it. I had that thing taken out. In fact, my brother wanted the speakers because he wanted to rebuild them. I also couldn't find a needle for that record player to replace it. But my brother wanted the speakers out of that, so he actually used them he rebuilt those speakers for something else, rewired them. So after I got rid of that thing, I think I gave all of the records that I had to someone. Yeah, I don't have cassettes. I had an 8-track player at one time, but I burnt that thing out. I played some of those 8-track tapes till they completely went to crap. I just have DVDs. When my maternal grandmother could still hear somewhat, I had given her some Polish music, some polka CDs, so that my mom could play them for her. But then after she died, then my mom played them for herself, but Now she mostly listens to polkas either on Facebook or YouTube. Because the laptop that she has does not have a player in it to put CDs or DVDs in. Her last one crapped out, so one of my sisters got a hold of one and gave it to her. But she had to help getting all of her stuff, like her Facebook and email accounts and all that stuff, put on to that one. But without the hearing aids in, my mom can only hear a little bit in her right ear. Yeah. Thanks for dropping in. Since I'm about done with everything here except my drinks, I'm probably going to go ahead and call this one good. See that red residue left in the drinking jar? It washes out. Good thing I use a glass one for that. But I want to thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. And once I know what is going to go on for next Sunday, being Mother's Day, whether or not I will be able to do my stream at the normal time, then I will think about what I will pull out of the ration box. But I hope you all enjoyed this one. This beef ravioli. And after I did the comparison with the Canadian, I do like the flavor of the Canadian beef ravioli a little bit better. But this one here is still a good one for those who are just getting into rations. I would definitely recommend it. And again, everything that I do not use gets added to my stash. And I want to thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. Thanks for watching, and catch you on the flip side.